Your alumni love helping students and fellow graduates, but they simply don't have time to attend every event, answer every call, or learn yet another online platform. With Protopia, making an impact is easier than it's ever been before. Ever. There's no new app to sign up for or use in our already busy lives. Students, alumni, or even staff can quickly ask for advice or networking via a simple form, email, or text. Protopia's artificial intelligence searches the institution's existing alumni data to find the best experts that are the most likely to assist based on experience, availability, location, and other factors. Each matched alum receives a direct, blind email to ask them to help, giving alumni full control over if and how they want to respond, whether that's by email, call, or a virtual meeting. And if it's not a good time, Protopia's AI simply reaches out to the next alum until the question has been answered. The student receives advice right into her email inbox and is coached to engage the alum to grow her professional network. Finally, our rich dashboard lets staff follow along, view detailed engagement analytics, and access updated alumni data. Protopia. Simple for them, simple for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for listening to Alumless for January 30th, 2026. This is the Evaluating Independent Alumni Association edition. I'm Ryan Catherwood, and I am joined by my friend and CMAC founder, Chris Marshall. How you doing, sir? Happy Friday.
Good, Ryan. Yeah, happy Friday to you. Doing well here. Cold, snowy, and school was in session today. That was the good news. How about you?
That's nice. Yeah, my kids have been home all week, actually. They just went ahead and canceled school for the rest of the week on Wednesday, and we got a snowstorm coming tomorrow. So I don't know when the kids are going to go back to school, honestly. I keep giving them a hard time because they're going to be in school till, a couple more weeks, it feels like, based on all this. But they seem to be enjoying sleeping in. Well, we're glad to have you all joining us today on Alumless. We talk about constituent engagement strategies and education advancement. We are live today, so please say hello in the comments on LinkedIn because we will be tuning in and responding. If you got a question, go ahead and pose that to us so that we can respond to your question or maybe even pose it to our excellent special guest today, Janet Kinard from Georgia Tech. If you're listening to us by podcast, we appreciate you adding us to your feed and making Alumless part of your routine. And we are grateful for the teams at Protopia, AlumniQ, and Givesy for being our Alumless presenting sponsor for Season 4. Chris, I don't know why we have not had a show 90 episodes in on the subject of independent alumni associations. Yeah. I think, one reason maybe is that there really aren't that many of them anymore, right? It is something that is a bit of a changing dynamic in the space. Why do you think there are so few fully independent alumni associations sort of operating today?
So I think it is a bit of a unicorn these days. The data point I've looked at, CAE shared this at one point. Back in the 80s and 90s, there were a couple hundred alumni associations that were legally independent and financially independent. So both pieces of it. Today, there's still many, many who are legally independent. Right. The 501c3 status hasn't changed at many of these places, but financially, they've moved to interdependent, in some cases dependent, on the institutional funding. And less than 10 is the number that's in my head. I'm curious what Janet has, because I'm sure there's a peer group of this group that are legally and financially, meaning they get no funding from an advancement operation, no funding from the institution in any way to run what is the alumni engagement program called an alumni association. And I think the big reason for that is that the business model was just not as sustainable. We lost credit card revenues. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started to see those going away. Membership dues programs continue to be a struggle, especially for younger populations. So the younger a population gets, the less likely they are to join organizations and be members. Again, generational trend. So you put those two together is that the business model is a struggle for a lot of these folks. And what reason they become interdependent is that the institution says, well, we don't want to lose the alumni engagement function. We're going to fund it. We can still call it an association. You can still be legally and separate, but we're going to fund and provide a large chunk of the budget. In some cases, some of the largest public institutions, half of their budget comes from institutional funding. The other half, they do their own generating those funds. So I think it's
Yeah.
business model question and shifting over time.
Hey, and I wonder what, like, the degree to which, benefits have kind of changed, right? The
Yeah,
ability for independent alumni associations to provide value for membership, right? And I
yeah.
think that's kind of shifted over the years. We'll ask Janet about that. But
Yep.
tell Chris, what are some of the characteristics of a university where maybe the independent model works versus perhaps those where it doesn't?
Yeah, and fully independent meaning both legally can work anywhere. And many, again, private and public institutions have legal separate 501c3, still associations, more of a,
Yeah.
what's the terminology you use? A brand more than anything else, right?
Yeah, it's like sometimes there's just an experience
Experience
brand,
brand,
right? Like
that's all
there's
it
no actual 501c3.
For those that are both legally and financially independent, I think the basic trend across those, they're large, they're public, they're in one of the Power Four conferences, usually athletics, football, being in there, or basketball, and a large fan base beyond the footprint of the alumni population, the student population. There is a regional fan base for the institution. I think those are the ones that have the best chance, but I would even argue that those are having increasingly more and more difficult time of maintaining financial independence just because the resources aren't as available. And I can't wait to talk to Janet and see how they're doing it down at Georgia Tech. So,
Well, it sounds like they are doing it at Georgia
Yeah,
Tech and
yeah.
things have been successful. So let's go ahead. Let's bring out our special guest today. Janet Kinard is Vice President for Engagement at the Georgia Tech Alumni Association. Janet, so good to have you on the show.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Maybe we could get things started by having you share a little bit more about Georgia Tech's model and structure. We talked about this idea of financially independent and independent as an entity, right, structurally, and just give us listeners kind of the overview on Georgia Tech's Alumni Association and the model and structure.
Excellent. Yeah. Before I dive in, I just want to thank you again for having me on. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm a longtime listener.
I love that. I love
and
that.
some of my most favorite alumni engagement professionals have been on this show over time. So I feel like I've joined some special rank. So thank you. So at Georgia Tech, we have, as you said, an independent model for our Alumni Association. It is a separate, standalone nonprofit, as is our foundation. Our Office of Development is within the Institute and reports up through the president. Our model is largely financially independent. We do get some funding from the Institute. It sits at around 6% now. And it has that money comes with strings. It has to be focused on student-facing and student-supporting activities. We do our own fundraising. And then we are very lucky in that we have a funding model from an endowment that supports our operations. And that means that we can be a non-dues paying organization so that we are able to focus our work on alumni and a broad base of alumni and don't have to focus too much on chasing memberships or anything like that. We can really just focus on the programming for engaging alumni and bringing them into our big, broad funnel.
So, I mean, it is something of a choice, I guess, Janet, right? To maintain an alumni-led association like you all have there as a structure, sort of alongside the separate foundation, development office. Share a little bit about why Georgia Tech chooses to maintain that model.
Sure. I think for one, it works. And some of it might be a little bit of don't fix what isn't broken.
Yeah.
And we have a long history. So we started in 1908 and the foundation started in 1932. We have a really long history here of being independent and it really works for us. We're also a state institution. Chris, I think you alluded to that a little bit. It gives us a certain flexibility and nimbleness in the work that we do. But I think at the heart of it, what it allows us to be very alumni-centric.
Yeah.
We can really focus on what the alumni want because we have a governing board of alumni. We really feel like we are answering to alumni. The Institute has to be student-centric. The foundation is Institute support-centric. Development is donor-centric. It allows us to think about what alumni want and really address that.
If you didn't have that endowment that you mentioned in your description, could you maintain the function and the model that you have in place today?
I wish I could say that we could. I think that we would really have to think about and look at the operations and think about what funding is available out there. And again, I know that we're lucky, and a lot of the independent model university alumni associations do have a dues-based model, and we might have to think about that. But luckily, it is in place, and it is not something that's going away.
Wonderful. It's wonderful.
We are very, very lucky.
I'll add that to my criteria, the large public and then an endowment. And a lot of those programs have endowments that are maintaining that autonomy. So it's a good one to add to the list. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about not being an integrated? What do you hear from folks who think, wow, how lucky you are or how unfortunate you are? It could be either side of that coin. What do you hear out there?
Sure. I think it is questions around funding and maintaining operations
I would think.
with the funding. But from a sort of, the actual operations and the day-to-day work of an alumni engagement professional is that attention between all of the different groups is inevitable or expected, and that there might be duplicative work or that we're not collaborative. And so I think that is one of the misconceptions, that working independently, that you can't be able to work collaboratively. I also think one of the misconceptions is that here, when you're doing alumni engagement work, that you're not focused on the big picture, which for the Institute is how we move our alumni through into a donor space. And so it is a misconception that alumni engagement professionals not part of an advancement shop would not be thinking about that and not focused on that. I love the quote from one of our fellow independent organizations, University of Kentucky. They really talk about this as being a team. If it's a basketball team, you need all of the members to be grabbing the rebounds and getting the assists and all of that, and then someone scoring. Well, that's how we think about it here, too, is that the Alumni Association is doing certain things to grab the alumni, but we ultimately know that we're moving them through to hopefully to a donor pipeline, but certainly to other ways to impact the Institute.
They know a little something about basketball at Kentucky.
I think that's why they use that.
You referenced this in your comments earlier about culturally, it's sort of how Georgia Tech operates, right? Having this autonomy and being the way it is. But do you see this model talk about that a little bit more, if you don't mind, but also do you see this giving you an advantage, a competitive advantage?
Yes, absolutely. So Georgia Tech is a very entrepreneurial, innovative space. And the culture across the Institute, not just with the Alumni Association, is that we want to be able to be flexible and nimble and kind of address the work that we need to do. There's also some very specific things that we're able to do here because we are independent. If we are working on, there's all sorts of opportunities around, if we're doing something with the Institute and they need somebody to be a contract partner, that, it seems like not something important, but it can be very important where we can do that. But again, it's really just about making sure that everybody understands what their work is, and it allows us to keep the centricity focused on the alumni.
Ryan, you've talked about this with some other clients who have legal independence, financial interdependence, but the legal independence is important for political advocacy, both at state and federal levels, but also contractually to be able to sign with consultants, which is one benefit for us, so sometimes it's easier. But also, the other dirty secret is that having alcohol at events is a little easier if you have a separate owned 501c states, right?
Yeah, an easy way to say is there's a lot of things that make events sort of creative and interesting that the university can't buy, right, in a public setting. And
that's a good point. That's the way you say it.
That's just like you were describing. Sometimes that means alcohol. Sometimes it means different types of entertainment, right? Or, but I think that independence of the 501c3 definitely allows for setting up more interesting experiences in many cases. All right, well, we'll be right back, Janet. We're going to take a quick break, word from our sponsor, and we'll pick up the conversation on the flip side.
What if you could guarantee that tomorrow would be better than today? That the work you're doing will have an impact, not just in this moment or in this year, but a true and lasting legacy of positive change? What if you had the ability to inspire those around you to make the world a better place? To right the wrongs, to address injustice, and to celebrate and amplify the good that happens every day. There are millions of people who want to be part of change, but just haven't been asked. They're out there. We're sure of it. How does it feel to make a gift that changes the world? Well, magical. We're building technology to help donors support the organizations that they love the most. Whether you give a little or you give a lot, your impact is felt. And together, we can make tomorrow better than today. We're version 2, and we're reinventing technology that reimagines what's possible in fundraising.
All right, we are back. Actually, our good friend Kim Infanti let me know that there was a question posed from Lisa in the chat about who manages the endowment that you all utilize. Maybe just share a little bit about how that works.
Sure. So the endowment that funds us is managed by the foundation, as they also manage the endowments for the institute support as well. So we partner closely with the foundation on our operational support.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds very interconnected for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you've noticed about what works for generating that important collaboration across the institution at the senior level. Some systems, routines that help keep those priorities aligned between the different entities.
It's really important. Kind of at the core is the culture and that sort of thing, and the mantra of One Georgia Tech that we talk about across the leadership teams, and that is espoused everywhere on campus. But we do have some very particular structures to make sure that we are not losing that opportunity to collaborate. And so the modeling from the senior leadership really helps as kind of moving on down through all of the staff that are working on this. So the structures are what you imagine they might be, are the leadership of each one of the organizations that support the overall funding and institute impact meet regularly. So the president of the Alumni Association, the president of the foundation, the vice president for development, all meet regularly. They meet regularly with the institute president in order to ensure alignment and that everybody is kind of on the same page. And then moving down, we have working groups across all of the functional areas within the functional groups that overlap the different organizations and with the institute. So the chiefs of staff, including many of the units on campus, meet regularly. The development team includes the Alumni Association and key members of the foundation in their all-staff meetings. We have a data working group. We have a tech council. We have an event coordinators committee across campus. And we have a communications council. So we are plugging into all of these areas in order to make sure that we're all aligned. And a lot of these things are happening because Georgia Tech is fairly decentralized as it is. And so we're just making sure that we're communicating and we have those avenues for making sure that we are collaborating.
There was a point, a little bit dated in my recollection of this one, that the Georgia Tech Alumni Association used to run the annual giving program for the Institute. Still the case?
They still do. They still do. And that was actually something I was going to talk about in a couple of minutes as far as helping with that connection piece and ensuring that some of that tension that might happen between alumni engagement and fundraising it happens. But the fact that the annual fund is housed at the Alumni Association does help our alumni engagement professionals really keep focused on the fact that we are aiming towards getting alumni to give and support in the philanthropic capacity. It does make a big difference in our structure.
That was where the idea came out of, was the question about the tensions that could arise. Mm-hmm. Any other, I mean, we're in a public forum here, but anything you're willing to share publicly about other tensions that you've experienced along the way here?
Sure. So I think a couple of things, and really one of the things we've been great about here with this independent structure is really being clear about what lanes everybody is in and what everybody does really well. And so we acknowledge what other people do well and what we do well, so we can all kind of work in our lanes and know where we collaborate over each thing. So for example, the Alumni Association is very, very good at large-scale events. The development office doesn't even have a team to do large-scale events because they rely on us, and that's a connection point. But One of the tensions that can happen across campus is, and I think it can happen in any kind of structure, is a program thinking about alumni as theirs versus the institute's and how you get through that. We do really look at and share a lot of information. We have our alumni attitude survey that we do every few years, so we can really demonstrate the work that we're doing is important and also that it's impactful to the work across campus. We really we have the metrics to show that the engagement that we're doing is leading to philanthropic giving, or that our engagement is leading to other engagement point opportunities across campus.
Do you ever hear the language used of "these are my alumni, these are your alumni"? Does that come up?
Yes, it does. But we're getting through that, and we're getting through it by demonstrating. One of the things that you really have to build is not only the structures, but the trust. And the trust comes from outreach, and the trust comes from conversations and demonstrating that if you do this and if we can share this information, it's a benefit to you because we can recognize the really good work you're doing. And that's an easier conversation to have than trying to say to somebody, they're Georgia Tech's alumni. Mm-hmm. And so we need to be talking across the board.
Janet, in our pre-show conversation, you mentioned a program called the College and School Liaison Program that I'd imagine is kind of helpful in exactly the ways that you may have been just describing, right? Some of the efforts to sort of proactively reduce some of the tensions between partners, but share a bit more about that College and School Liaison Program and how it operates day to day.
Sure. I'm really excited about this program, and I'm excited about its continued growth as we're moving forward. So when I started at the Alumni Association, we actually weren't in a very collaborative space. And I came in.
How long have you been there, Janet?
So I've been here not quite 9 years.
Wow, okay.
Keep going. I'm a tech alum too, so I think that helped because I felt a lot of I'm coming in. This is my institute. I'm coming in and figuring things out.
Don't lose your train of thought, but a tech question. I used to hear that they would say, like I say, I graduated from Lehigh in '88. Ryan, what do they say at Georgia Tech? We get out.
Yeah, I got out in '97 and then got a master's and got out in '99. Yeah,
and you escaped from this institute, right?
And one of our institute presidents a few years ago tried to change that and really didn't want that as what we say, and we can't change it. It's young, old, doesn't matter. The alumni say it. So, yeah.
All right, back to college.
So college and school liaisons. No, it's fine. So when I started here, and really we weren't in a very collaborative space. And as you can imagine, we were kind of after the fact hearing that, this dean traveled here, and we would have loved to have done an all alumni event. And we find out once they're back on campus. We first started working with a colleague in one of our colleges who was doing some alumni engagement and had approached us about working together. And we said, this has been a really valuable awareness of what each one is doing and really valuable for just kind of the overall alumni engagement picture. And so then we approached all the deans of all the colleges and asked them to name a liaison for this program. And we established this program where we would meet regularly. The original idea was about awareness and communication channels. It has become much more about sharing best practices and collaboration, and sometimes just sharing challenges and brainstorming around how to solve for those. But the exciting thing is that once we started working on this and really communicating across the colleges, the dean saw the real power in having somebody focused on alumni engagement, because those first liaisons were people where alumni engagement was sort of an add-on to what they did, or they were the development officer for the unit. And several of the deans, it hasn't happened across all colleges, but within 3 years, 4 of our 6 colleges funded a position for alumni engagement.
It's wonderful.
And of course, as an independent entity, we can't necessarily embed somebody. We also, our resources are finite, so we couldn't do that. But it was a really powerful demonstration of what alumni engagement can do. And so now we actually have alumni engagement officers in these different colleges that we can work with. And, I'm really looking forward to where this program is going.
How big is that group? How many people are we talking about?
So right now the group is 9 people. It's usually 10, and that's because we have 7 colleges. And then we actually have a few schools that have also funded an alumni engagement officer, schools that are that are on the larger side that have a large alumni base have been able to do that. So when we started, we had 6 colleges. We added a 7th college, and then we also include the library.
And how often does that group convene?
We meet quarterly to actually go through things, talk about our calendars, talk about some challenges, check in on data pieces because we've been doing some data work with them. But we have a Teams channel. And we regularly meet. And then the other thing that I love, which is why you have to let go of ownership, is that a lot of those liaisons are now meeting independently.
Right.
They get together to talk about the things that they're doing within their colleges. And I love that. I don't need to know everything that they're doing.
Reason I dove into there and got some detail, because that's what I would describe as the best practice. I mean, I see schools, larger public institutions who have that setup, right? And they don't ever meet. Or if they do, it's a talk at kind of thing, and there's no strategy, no real discussion. So kudos for you guys.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Now, don't let that thing fade away, because that's so important.
It's been powerful.
I mean, a community of practice like that you were just describing really is not just optional, right? It's not a thing that if you're going to have good alumni engagement, particularly at a big institution with strong decentralized colleges and schools, if you can't pull together that community of practice, I mean, I feel like you're going to constantly battle the friction that comes with what you described earlier, which is that these are our alumni problem, right? There's like the territorialness and like really the ability to share insights and best practice is so important.
Now, the hard ones is there are going to be listeners to this podcast who are at a large decentralized public university, and there's only a central small team, and there aren't staff in the colleges and schools. And what happens in those scenarios is a dean or a faculty, often a department head, will have an admin or somebody start doing some alumni stuff completely in a vacuum, in a silo, and never coordinate with the center. It's got to be frustrating. I'm sure you had some of that when you...
We did, and that actually brings me to the Alumni Relations Network, which
I want to have my next question for you. Fire away.
So that grew out of the college liaison program. As we were talking with them, we started meeting more and more people across campus who, Chris, to your point, had alumni engagement as a duty not assigned. And so we knew we didn't need the level of sort of engagement that we do with the liaisons, but we wanted to be a value add to people who were doing this as part of their broader job. And we wanted to also share best practices with them so that there was a certain standard of service for our alumni. So that because alumni, again, they think of Georgia Tech as Georgia Tech. And so we wanted to make sure that whatever way you're coming into Georgia Tech as an alum, it feels like you're part of the bigger picture. It's also been a huge opportunity to talk with them about the importance of data, recognizing the work that they're doing and getting them engaged. So with that group, we have a summit once a year that we bring everybody together. And again, we also have a Teams channel. So people share, and that's been a huge resource sharing area. So people across...
It looks like a toolkit to how to, if you're not... How big is that group?
So right now it's around 74 people, and we seem to grow every day. And really, we just let anybody join who says they're doing something with alumni, and we use that point for things like homecoming because there's so many people that do a homecoming activity. So we use that group to gather information from them about anything that's happening across campus. And we'll talk a little bit more later, but it's been a really great opportunity for us to do sharing of opportunities for alumni engagement across campus.
And another best practice from Georgia Tech there. So I think it's wonderful. I know, Ryan, we got to hop, but let us know who our next guest is and give us a wrap, and then we'll do the next segment.
Yeah, well, we bumped up against the time here. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll be continuing the conversation with Janet in our bonus section on the podcast. But excited to say my friend and another Virginian over at Washington and Lee University, John Jensen, will join us. John is the Executive Director of Alumni and Career Services. So there was a little while there where it felt like there was momentum for lots of schools moving to merge alumni and career services, and I'm not so sure it's a trend anymore. So we're going to talk about that trend or enigma, the alumni career services merger, and have a conversation about that particular dynamic with John in 2 weeks' time. And so thank you for listening, everybody. We're going to record our bonus edition with Janet, and we'll be back in your feed in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Janet.
Of course.